This is my CISSP exam certificate after I've successfully passed the test several years ago. In today's video, I'm going to discuss if you should take the CISSP exam and my experience when I finally caved in after 20 years and took it. So my name is John Barker with Barker Management Consulting. I've got over 20 years in the technology and business sectors. I've ran multi-million-dollar projects for the Department of Defense, consulted with hundreds of different clients on tech, cybersecurity, and just business-related needs. And I'm all about trying to help you scale and secure your business. And if all of that sounds good, why don't you do me a favor? Give me a like. Okay, so let's jump into it. Who is the CISSP exam for? The exam is for seasoned professionals. The minimum requirement is 5 years of experience. They've got 8 different domains in there, and you need to have experience in roughly 2 or 3 to even really consider taking the exam. So if you're in networking, software development, database development, or even physical security, which was probably the part that I had the least amount of experience in. I'd never set up fencing around a building before, but there are questions on it that you are eligible to take this exam. You need, like I said, 5 years of documented experience, and once you pass the exam, you got to have another CISSP sign off on it. And I do think when I had to go get the endorsement, they've got something if you don't really know anybody, because at the time I really only knew 2 or 3 people that had actually had the certification before I did. But this exam is a management exam. And I've heard several other people discuss how this was the equivalent of getting a master's degree in cybersecurity. I would say maybe a master's degree in information security or even risk management for a business because of everything that it covers. They say that inch deep, mile wide definitely applies to the CISSP exam. And some of the stuff that I had seen related to statistics for the exam, and while this is not official, it was just kind of rough stuff that had been floating out there, that only 25% of people actually even pass the exam on the first time. And this is not a prep. I'm not here to teach you how to pass the exam. There's some stuff coming down the line I will tease. I wouldn't even be allowed to, even if that was what I wanted to do. But that's not my deal. That's not my thing. There are many other YouTube channels, and I'll put some resource links in the description below of what I used when I took the test. So I'm sure I didn't break any new ground. If you came here and clicked on what is the CISSP exam, it probably echoes what you've heard on other YouTube channels and your other research. If that's the case, give me a thumbs up. I never intended to take the CISSP exam. The thought of taking another certification test, the last big one that I took several years ago, actually probably like 10 years ago, was the PMP, the Project Management Professional Certification. And you've got to take a lot of continuing education credits for that. You can volunteer. There's a bunch of stuff. And I was not looking forward to passing another exam with yet more continuing education requirements to keep it up to date. Don't get me wrong, I understand why you have professional development units that some places call it, or continuing education units that other places call it. So you stay fresh, the content stays new within you. You just don't pass the exam and 10 years later you forgot everything, but you stay involved within the community of the certification. I get that. It was just one of those situations of I didn't want to become personally overwhelmed. But where I live, we are surrounded by government contractors, and during the time period when I was starting to think about it, the government contractors were going to be subjected to, if you're familiar with this at all, the CMMC requirement to go through an accreditation process, a certification process that they meet basic cybersecurity principles. I'm not going to go into that here, but knowing that there was going to be a potential for a lot of consulting opportunities there, I thought having the CISSP, which is regarded as one of the highest, if not the highest, management level information security certification in the world, it'd probably be a good idea to have it. Plus, I thought I had been to some training seminars, some very, very early stage stuff with CMMC, and thought this was going to be a requirement to be able to go in there and attest that these guys are doing what they needed to do. So I thought, obviously, good on the resume, good for consulting and the consulting business, and potentially being a requirement for what I was looking to get into. Different story, wasn't required. Anybody off the street can pretty much do CMMC, but I decided to focus in and do it. Here's the kicker. This may blow a few of you away. I took the exam after only 6 weeks of studying, and that was really only 6 weeks of studying on the weekend. And again, this comes back to I had experience in 7 of the 8 domains over 20 years. I have been exposed to a lot. So going through the training, some of it was a refresher, some of it I hadn't seen in a long time, but then it all started coming back to me going through the training process. Like I said, in the early phases, or the early stages of the video, I did not know anything about physical security. I've done some camera work and done some lock work, but I didn't do fences and security guards and the barriers and things of that nature, because there is a section on that. It's also perhaps the easiest section if it's the one that you are the least familiar with. That was my experience going for it, and I got lucky because when I signed up and took the exam, this was right before COVID shut down the testing centers. I got in there, I believe, 3 days before the testing center shut down. I passed on the first try. It is a CAT exam where the computer actually makes the questions harder the more you get right. And I passed it at 101 questions. 100 is the minimum, so I did miss a thing in there, but I got it pretty close to the bare minimum, 101 on the first try. One of the things about the exam, if you are considering taking this, there are no good exam simulators out there. I'll put the links again in the description for some of the resources that I used, but there is nothing that accurately reflects the wording of the questions on the exam in any of the simulators that I used. A lot of the apps that I had on my phone, let's say I was in a doctor's appointment, I was just flipping through my phone and it was doing some practical questions during those time periods, were typically way too easy and way too straightforward. And the probably the one that I will recommend that's the most advanced and more complicated were way too technical for the types of questions that were worded on the exam. I will say that. The level of, it's not, again, it's a management certification. There are some technical aspects to it, but it's not a super deep dive into encryption methodologies. It's not getting into how to be a pen tester, and I'll talk about that as far as the ramifications in a minute. So pass the exam, go, sweet. Cool, I got it. Look back on it, the pressure is off. I hadn't taken an exam in at least, like I said, a decade, and passed it on the first try. Now, whether this has been worth it, if you're in other technology related circles, or you work in an environment, a tech heavy environment, or probably a larger organization, super awesome. They know what it is. They will respect you for passing the exam. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work with a lot of experience. You cannot just walk off the street and do this exam. You cannot just study a book for a week or two. It's not worded that way. Trust me. I think it's one of the reasons why none of the exam simulators I tried when I finally actually took the real test matched up. But this is also something that people know the buzzword for. It's kind of like the PMP. I used to give, when I would see job requirements, if I was working to help get other people into new positions, the government would want a PMP certification, but in the description, ask for a totally different project management, typically agile, as the execution. That was two separate things. They're starting to merge that together. It's the same with the CISSP. People know the buzzword CISSP and then start sticking it on entry-level positions. This is not an entry-level position. So anybody happen to click on this and thinking that I want to go get CISSPs and I need somebody like right out of college or right out of a tech school, don't do that. That is not what this is for. And as I've mentioned before, and I'm going to say it again because this comes up repeatedly, this is not a technical certification. This is a management certification. You're going to go lead a team. You're going to go lead a department. Maybe you're the CISO. Maybe you're the CIO, or maybe you're just, if you're in a smaller organization, you're the director of the entire department. This is that level that gives you that broad scope to understand risk management strategy and keeping the company and the environment safe, for your department safe, for your customers and clients safe. This is not something where you're a hacker, you have to be a pen tester. That is part of your background. I've run into that so many times. When you say the word cybersecurity, I want to vomit. This is that confusion. We've got this big gap from the business people and the tech cyber side of what this certification in particular even means. This means that you can come run the show. This does not mean that you ever fired up Wireshark one time in your life, which is probably about as many times as I've ever had, because I didn't come from that side of the house. I did not come from offensive cyber. I was network engineering, defensive, firewalls, routing, VPNs, encryption at rest, things of that nature. I was not the guy that was trying to break into networks. I was trying to keep people out of networks. So if you want to get a CISSP on your team, or you want a consultant to advise you, super, super awesome. They are there to help with the overall risk management strategy of your business, of your data. But again, like I said, there's even a physical aspect of this. I can go around and go, oh, you leaving papers all over your desk. You need a clean desk policy. This stuff is like confidential if somebody's leaving accounting paperwork out of there. But the one thing that don't think that somebody that has a CISSP exam is coming in there to fix your computers, to do a bunch of coding. Absolutely not the case. Absolutely not the case. I'm a walking testament to that. And I'll pop my shirt for a second. I don't know anybody that's taken the exam in 6 weeks. I take that back. I read one person that said they did it in a 2-week study period. I do not know what their background is. I do remember coming across that on a subreddit. If you are looking to take the CISSP exam, I highly encourage you. It's great on the resume. The last stat I saw, there's really only 250,000 people, I believe, in the world that have it. It's very highly regarded, but have the expectation that if you get this exam and passed, and you know the level of work that's put into it, others may not understand exactly what it is that you got. That would be my expectation. If you're working at one of the FANG companies, you know, your Facebooks, your Apple, your Netflix, your Amazon, they will absolutely understand what I'm talking about. But if you go down the street to the company that's looking for a system security analyst and you have a CISSP, they may have a very, very different view or understanding of what they believe that certification means. So take that with a grain of salt. I definitely check into doing that. I've already renewed my credentials for the next cycle. I don't regret waiting as long as I did. To be honest with you, waiting longer made me study less. You know, I didn't feel like I was cramming for it. So great experience. Hope to have more come up. But let me know in the comments, what do people around you think the CISSP is? Was any of this information new to you? And what is your expectation that if you get it, how will it further your career and in return that you get by making that investment in yourself? So until the next one.